I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, would a treatment-based approach to drug addiction be more effective than decriminalization?
I think we can learn from Portugal's example of what decriminalization looks like. I think treatment is obviously a really healthy way of dealing with it.
Decriminalization is massive in making sure people feel comfortable and safe coming forward if they are struggling.
And you supply them, keep supplying them with the same drugs, and it's not going to go away.
It's got to be treated.
But first, as summer winds down, members of Parliament are winding up for their return to the House of Commons. And this time around, it should prove that they have their work cut out for them. High interest rates, high food prices, and affordable housing are just a few of the things Canadians are looking to find some relief for. So we took to the streets to ask people what items they feel should be on the top of the list. Our question:
what issues should be the priority of Parliament this session?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the upcoming issues that I would like to see is inclusivity with gender and with fluidity and accepting people for who they are and not putting restrictions on that anymore, because it's quite disgusting, especially seeing what's happening in the school systems.
Well, probably the mortgage crisis there, with the tripling of the cost of owning a house. So probably deal with the housing crisis for sure.
Inflation and carbon tax. Well, inflation is just getting so hard to keep up with the bills. Carbon tax, I think, is just silly and erroneous and all that stuff. But yeah, but inflation is probably the big one, because you're really seeing it in everything that you do.
Well, I think our relationships with Indigenous peoples in Canada would be, one of the top priorities, as well as just the, plight of all sorts of folks with vulnerable, our vulnerable populations are really suffering under the weight of increased costs and in our economy, and how we're looking after those folks should really be addressed in our House of Commons.
Climate change, absolutely. The whole city is full of smoke, so definitely climate change. And then after that, the homeless crisis.
Getting our country back on track. We've run off the rails here with what's going on, and I guess it's maybe a sign of the times that things are changing, but not really changing for the good. So we have problems there, and things need to be sorted out. What it's going to take, I don't know, but there's a problem that needs to be addressed.
Everything's so expensive. How about, maybe looking after some homeless people, looking after the working people, looking after their own people?
I think the federal government should put more money into infrastructure and community and reserve, and support more capacity building with economic development.
And yeah, I think the federal government should be focusing more on the Indigenous jurisdiction and giving them governance powers, and really reshaping the relationship between the nations, and removing the hierarchical or parent type approach, and really trying to collaborate and work with the communities on where they're at and where they're trying to go. I think it's really important to ensure that they're giving the chance to grow and develop as a unique nation, and not just following the government's lead.
The homelessness and drug abuse, housing for low income, my opinion.
They gotta look at, of course, the housing situation is a big deal, and food prices are getting bad as well. I don't drive a car, but also the gas is going up.
The government of Canada needs to continue to help young people and provide affordable housing for people who are kind of finishing university and starting careers.
I agree. I think they need to do something about the gas prices. That's really big right now, especially in Vancouver. Trying to get from point A to point B, it's not happening, and the buses are unsafe.
I think the economy is certainly one of them. Life is getting more and more expensive, and if you have enough money, then that's not a problem. But there's quite a few people that are struggling, and I think that certainly should be a topic for the next election.
Yeah, definitely health issues. Number one priority. We need a lot of hospitals. and a lot of doctors and nurses. And second, which is coming to my mind right now, is about the housing and the taxes, how they're completely on surge from last 2-3 years. We have been waiting for the time to come it down, buy new investment properties or something, but it doesn't seem it's in some near future. So yeah, housing too.
Environment, economy, housing.
Why do you say that?
Housing crisis out of control, one of the worst in the world right now. Economy not rebounding as expected. Environment, even if we hit the targets laid out in the accords, we are way under-resourced to even hit that.
Do I have to pick just one? I mean,
whatever.
Between the wildfires and what's going on across the country and people are really suffering, they really need to make a plan so that it's not reactive every time this seems to happen. And of course, the economy. It's a big thing. It's affecting everybody, and I'd like to see more action on that, not just on housing, but inflation. I think there's a lot to be done, and I'm hoping that this break has allowed them time to really prioritize their tasks going forward.
Well, the economy is affecting everybody, so inflation is really hitting people really hard, and healthcare is becoming more and more inaccessible without family doctors being available and things like that. So those are my big issues.
The mental health shortage, the psychologist shortage, as well as the environment currently.
Why are those things important to you?
I studied psychology, so I know firsthand how bad the mental health shortage is currently. The wait lists are very long, and people coming out of COVID, they definitely need mental health support. So,
yes, I think the number one priority right now is cost of living, and housing right now is a huge housing shortage right now, and I think that's the main concern. And we're hoping, honestly, in the next year or two, we're going to get a conservative government right in there, and they're really going to turn things around in regards to the cost of living crisis that we're in right now.
September 9th marked the one-year anniversary of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. For the vast majority of us, she's the only reigning British and Canadian monarch we have ever known. And now with the emergence of her son, King Charles III, many of us may have to get used to some changes that could come along with a new monarch. We took to the streets to ask people if they sense any differences when it comes to the monarchy, and if so, what? Our question.
1 year after the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, how much has the monarchy changed?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a lot of reforms, even in the UK. There's a lot of Commonwealth countries even wanting to leave the Commonwealth. That's not something Canada would ever want to do anytime soon, I wouldn't think. But yeah, right now I think we have a good relationship with the UK overall, you know, and we have great respect for the new king and the United Kingdom, you know.
I'd say the novelty of it has gone down since the Queen has passed. She was definitely kind of like a very prominent figure, but since she's passed, I guess I haven't really heard much about the monarchy since. So I guess the novelty of it has worn down a bit.
Oh, I think people remain quite indifferent. It's no change, I guess. That's my personal feeling.
Yeah. You don't think King Charles, like that all plays into making a difference?
I think maybe an older generation cares, but the younger ones certainly don't.
As a Canadian,
she was Queen of Canada.
If she was Queen of Canada, I have not seen any type of change. I'm not really sure that I understand why we have a monarchy, but I don't think from a day-to-day perspective, those are things that Canadians don't really think about.
Even with the emergence of King Charles?
Even with the emergence of King Charles. I think we're more distracted with his children than we are with things that he's done in the last year.
I don't keep up too much with it, and I'm not entirely sure, so I don't know how to answer, but I don't think very much.
I feel like it's never going to be the same. I'm like, now that she's gone, it's like that's the only monarch we've known for like our grandparents' whole lives. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be the same.
Not a clue, to be honest. I don't keep up with it. It's kind of archaic. It doesn't really affect my life, so I don't really even keep up with it.
That I don't know. I haven't really noticed a change. I liked Queen Elizabeth, but yeah.
I don't think so that has a big impact. I think the things are still the same. There's not a big thing that has changed. Lives are good, not positive, not negative, so it's smooth so far.
Things have changed a little bit, but not much, because People still want the monarchy, it seems, for some reason, I guess, because of tradition, and maybe things need to change there too. So it hasn't changed enough. Let's put it that way. It's changed some, but not enough yet.
Well, it may have modernized itself a little bit, but I don't think it's really changed significantly, at least in my opinion.
Well, I'm from England, so it's changed quite a bit. It was a massive shock for the country back on the 8th of September last year. But I think that the country has changed and grown in to having Charles as king. It seems a little bit strange for things to have changed from Queen's Council to King's Council. Those kinds of things appear quite strange to me, but he's done a lot of touring of the country. I was very moved at his coronation.
Yeah, the king is now the leader. Honestly, there's not much that's going to change really between a king or a queen. The monarch still has its own prerogative and will continue to do what they need to. It's really we have an obligation to force and change the relationship, not with Canada, but with the monarch. And I think the federal government and provincial government get nervous when we start to knock on that door.
I would have to say it's changed a lot because I'm not big on the monarchy, but you don't hear about as much of King Charles as you ever did of Queen Elizabeth.
I don't think it's changed a lot, unfortunately. I think it's a lot of the same. I'm quite excited to see, hopefully, William and Kate. I think they'd be really good monarchs, but I'm not the biggest fan of the king. I'm excited to see the new the new pound bills with his face on it. That's gonna be cool. But I don't think it's changed a lot now.
I think as young Canadians, I don't think that we've noticed anything. But maybe just because we haven't been in tune with the monarchy. Like, that's not really something that's relevant to us.
Yeah, I don't think so. The only thing I see are the tabloids about Kate and who's taking the throne or whatever. That's pretty much all I see.
How many current provincial or territorial premiers are women? 1, 2, or 3?
Ooh, at least 1.
3.
2, I'd have said.
Yeah, I would say 1.
1.
3.
Let's see, Alberta. 2.
I know of 1 for sure. I'm gonna guess 2.
I'm guessing 2.
3.
You know what?
I wish it was 3.
It's 3.
Yay!
You got it right.
Of the 13 provincial and territorial premiers in Canada, 3 are women. Danielle Smith is Alberta's 19th premier and assumed office in October of 2022. Caroline Cochrane is the 13th premier of the Northwest Territories and has held the office since October 2019. And in Manitoba, Heather Stephenson has been premier since November 2021 and is the first woman in that province's history to occupy that role.
Recently, Canada's new housing minister, Sean Fraser, suggested that one solution that could possibly slightly alleviate Canada's housing problem is to put a limit or cap on the number of students entering this country annually. Every year, Canada welcomes roughly 800,000 international students into this country, and many communities embrace the diverse cultures that come along with them, as well as the boost to their local economies. But should we cut back on letting them in for the sake of making more space? Our question.
Would limiting the number of international students entering Canada affect the current housing crisis?
I don't think that's the problem with the housing crisis. I think that without them, well, for starters, our population plummets if we don't have immigrants, and international students bring a lot to the table. So I think I don't think that's the issue with our housing.
And housing crisis, students roommate constantly, so there's a bunch of people in one house all the time anyway, so it's not like they're taking up a huge amount of space.
I don't think so. I'm a huge proponent for diversity and bringing all walks of life and anybody, anywhere, wherever they want to go. So I'm a huge advocator for immigration and bringing people to Canada. Canada's amazing, and the more voices we can get, the better.
I believe there is a shortage on housing, definitely, and I think it would definitely help. Yeah, there's a lot of people already living in the community that are already struggling, so adding more people to that will just definitely affect it.
That's not because of international students. That's because of the way that people are spending their money and the way that people are jacking up prices and the way that our economy is going, which is more, again, directly related to the government.
Probably not.
No.
No, we just need to build more houses and make like housing more affordable for like everyday Canadians. Limiting international students is probably not a logical solution to a housing crisis.
I mean, they're looking for places to live, which means owners and landlords will they're just jacking their prices up out of range just so that nobody can afford to, and especially the students. We need this. We need the immigration, and we need the students.
I think that's super hard because Canada is such a diverse country itself that limiting people coming in is something that I don't think we can really do. However, I do think it is a problem, like the balance. I think trying to find maybe a more stable balance between international and domestic students would be more fair.
Yeah, I think that there's lots of international students who provide skills and cultural intelligence that maybe Native Canadians don't, and I think that they're an asset to our society. But I think definitely there needs to be a more balance between the two. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think limiting is the answer because it's always really interesting to have students from everywhere. I'm a little biased because all my friends went to uni in Montreal. But I think maybe focusing on getting uni-specific housing or kind of making sure they kind of build some houses so that students can feel that they can buy those instead of taking some houses off the market for everyone else. I mean, definitely it is students will want to get a house, so that is a problem, and, the market's already pretty busy, but I feel like maybe if they just kind of focus on getting specific uni ones, then the students would focus on those rather than just take any other house off the market. But I don't think we should limit the foreign students because I do think they're really interesting, and it's really cool to be able to learn somewhere else.
Possibly. It all depends on the number and whether they have prior arrangements of their arrival, where they're going to stay. If they just all arrive and there has been no arrangements made, and if they take away from locals, from local housing, it should be an issue, but there should be probably a more controlled way of figuring out the numbers and if it all works out.
I really don't think so. I think it's good to get international students. I think Canada relies on people coming in. I'm one of them myself, actually, but so I don't think so. I think we have to do something with the housing crisis, but I don't think that stopping international students coming in will solve that.
It's tough. You got a non-circular economy that relies on immigration, and we ought to welcome and lean into it. On the other hand, we do have a housing crisis spiraling out of control, and if properties aren't going to build up and they build out, then that's going to continue to be problematic.
I disagree. I think, first of all, for universities to survive, they really need the international student fees. It's something that they really rely on, and I don't think it's a bad thing to welcome international students into this. And honestly, I went to University of Toronto. We had tons of international students, and I loved their perspective and their experiences, and it was a great networking opportunity. The students are not the ones buying single-family homes. Maybe their parents are buying some condos, fine, but when we're talking about a housing crisis, we're really talking about single-family or, the homes across the country. That's what we're lacking. It's a false equivalent, in my opinion.
Well, with people not coming in, so many international students, of course, they are not looking for housing in Canada. But I think that international students bring a lot to our culture and our society as a whole. So the benefits, I think, may not outweigh the costs of it.
No, I think that's a very temporary, weak measure to actually fix anything substantial here. At the end of the day, if we're bringing in millions of immigrants and we're not building that amount of homes, there's going to be issues there. But the number one priority right now needs to be building those homes, renovating those homes, so that we just have homes for everyone to live in. That's the way I would see it.
Canada's drug addiction crisis continues to worsen with no relief in sight. Recent government data suggests that in 2022, 20 people per day died of a drug overdose in this country, and almost 7,500 people in a span of 1 year. Decriminalization of small amounts of street drugs, similar to what they've done in Portugal, has been applied to some jurisdictions within Canada with the hopes of bringing those overdose numbers down. But there are those who prefer a treatment-based approach over decriminalization. So we took to the streets to see where you sit with this. Our question:
do you believe a treatment-based approach to drug addiction would be more effective than decriminalization?
We're all human, and it's a mental issue. And if you have a mental issue and you keep supplying them with the same drugs, and it's not going to go away.
I don't think it's either or, decriminalization and treatment. I think we can learn from Portugal's example of what decriminalization looks like. I think treatment is obviously a really healthy way of dealing with it, but it's not one or the other. I think really we have to look at what society is doing around drug use, and then trying to figure out, well, how do we treat drug users in a way that honors their humanity. I think that's the real trick, is trying to get not just society, but trying to find solutions that work for them, and building from a client-based approach rather than here's the glove, does it fit?
I think an approach based on treating addiction and treating mental health is what I think would be the number one solution. That would be if I had to say what would you do, that's what I would do. I would provide more addictions counseling, more mental health counseling for people who are suffering from those kinds of illnesses.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's more talking about mental health and their addiction, and not so much the drugs. That is a factor, but we have to think about why that happened in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's always better if you can concentrate on the person and what their needs are. So yes, I would always want to look at a person-centered approach.
I would hope that the first one would be the best, but something tells me they gotta legalize more of the drugs, yeah. Take it out of the shadows so it can be seen and administered properly.
I think it's a little bit of a mix, probably. I'm more on the decriminalization side. I don't think that treatment is necessarily gonna help out there, but for some people it might help. But generally, I don't think so.
I really don't know. I think a lot of the medical literature and the people in the medical community seem to favor decriminalization, but I'm not sure whether that's the answer or not. So I really don't know.
It's a double-edged sword. We want to provide a safe space for these people with addictions so that they don't feel like they have to do it in secret and hurt themselves even more. But treatment is also necessary to help them. So I'm kind of in the middle on this one. So
certainly treatment. Not decriminalizing, because they'll just look for other ways to get the source. So it's got to be treated.
Whatever we're doing, it's not working. I don't think it makes sense to round people up and then have them go into the system and out of the system. Is probably not a good use of police resources. People are now openly shooting up on the sidewalks. It's not, and that makes sense. If to not use the police resources that way, if they're already stretched. So probably I would favor a treatment approach. Makes sense?
Yeah, I think they call the Liberals and NDP, they call it a safe supply. And at the end of the day, there's really nothing safe about it. I mean, there maybe it's not laced with things that's going to kill you, but these drugs are still not safe. So our priority as a government should be to fund treatment. And that's the way to really get out of this crisis. We need to bring our loved ones home, healthy, fully healthy, not with any drug addictions or anything like that. That would be the way I would personally want to fix the current drug crisis right now. We're seeing in all the major cities in Canada, that would be how I see it.
I would probably say the treatment would be better. I think the decriminalization would just be, you know, an opening to allow anybody to do it. And I think we need to hit the root cause of why people have addictions.
No, I don't. I think, you know, growing up as a young kid, when all that stuff was tempting, that was a fear, how the consequences of it. If you don't fear the consequences, I think you just be like more, oh, whatever, I'm young, I can experiment, and no consequences. So, no, I think criminalization of it is actually a good thing.
I think both methods have merit. I think decriminalization removes stigma, so then it becomes less of a secret, so then they're less isolated, and that way they don't, they're at a lot less risk to themselves if other people know they're doing it. But when they want to get off, those treatment programs are also important. They also need those. So both.
Ooh, that's a tough question. I believe organizations like Prairie Harm Reduction and making safe injection sites, safe spaces for people struggling with addiction and battling with drug addiction, and decriminalizing it so that it isn't a crime to seek help, and destigmatizing that so that people can get help. So I think that treatment approach, so still helping people move through their addiction if they choose to, but decriminalization is massive in making sure people feel comfortable and safe coming forward if they are struggling.
Yeah, I do think when we look at addictions and all the things that come along with it, you know, treatment is of course the most important. You know, here in Saskatoon we have a safe injection site, and I'd like to see more support given to that.
Definitely. I think that people definitely need rehab if they have addictions, for sure. I believe that going into the penal system as well is a good way for it. I mean, you're learning from your mistakes. I mean, I think it's both ways. I go both ways, definitely.
I think both can go hand in hand with decriminalization as well as the support for people that have those addictions. I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, treatment is definitely the way to go for that type of stuff because, you know, you get to pair up with counselors and doctors, and psychiatrists, and people that were literally trained to do that job and help you, right?
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.